In Ethiopian life, the imperial ruler is likened in splendor to the sun, in exalted power to the lion, in his divine being to the kings of Israel, and at times to God himself.
Senbet Salam, Shabbat Shalom. Also happy Hanukkah to you all, my brothers and sisters. There's some questions that have come in, especially on the public comment board, as we have been trying to get the word out. But the private or the personal messages, we haven't, because of short staffing and the abundance of the harvest and the fewness of co-laborers, haven't had opportunity to be able to answer every single question, especially the worthy questions, as we would like. But please do not give up on us, as I have not given up on you all. This is why we communicate these teachings in this way and seek to make ourselves available to those who are willing to learn, as we ourselves are willing to learn. Anyway, this is the 11th Sabbath. We're now in the 11th Sabbath, as well at the end of the Hanukkah time. We apologize again that we haven't been able to fully get into the teachings of the previous Sabbath, because the previous Sabbath, Miket B'Chalam, as it's called, from Genesis 41 to Genesis 44 and 17. Now we're at 44 and 18, as we have entered the 11th Sabbath, that's known as Wayyigash, more according to the Sephardic and the Sephardim, and the Ashkenazi says Wayyigash. Bamarinya, in the Amharic we say Atukotang, and that's verse 18, which begins, Then Judah came near to him and said, O my Lord, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my Lord's ears, and let not thine anger burn against thy servant, for thou art even as Pharaoh, for thou art even as Pharaoh. And this is the beginning of the 11th Sabbath and sabbatical study, which is now. And we're about to do an overview of this particular sabbatical reading. Now, one thing I want to say is that we're only got this week's, this Senbet, this Sabbath, and next Sabbath, Tekemet, or Vayechi, which means he sat, that's coming up next week, and then we're going to get into Exodus. So we're already just about finished one book, and we're finishing up what we call the Ethiopic Genesis. So let's just begin this Bamarinya. Besem Abu wa Walid wa Manafas Kedus Ahadu Amlak Yehuda ma wada arsu karabe indihim ale getaye hoy ene bariyah be getaye joro andi tak alin andin nagara elemnalo inne nimma bariyahinna atukotang ante inde Pharaoh. That is the first verse of the 11th sabbatical reading, which we just read, concerning when Judah was speaking to his brother Joseph. This is just before Joseph reveals himself to his brethren. And it's important here, in order to connect this Sabbath with last Sabbath, and like we said, we didn't get up to this part because we was focusing on certain of the elements, the Kamite mythos elements and the ancient elements that helps us to properly interpret. Now, Discipleship. Let's just speak a moment on discipleship, because the questions have come in on the Amharic, the brothers out of Chi-Town, Chicago, as well as other brothers and sisters, too numerous now to name all of the different ones who are seeking to touch base with I want to touch base with the I and fellowship. But first, the teaching is important. First, the teaching is important. See, fellowship basically means brotherhood. And we're all coming from different maybe points of view, but we have to have a miseso, like a center post. You understand? Have to have a center point, and the center point must be the good news of the King of Kings, must be the teachings of His Imperial Majesty, must be the scriptures. You understand that center point. So teaching, first of all, must precede the fellowship. So this is one reason why fellowship at this present time is not as active as it should be amongst us, because there's certain basic teaching that we need so we will know how to come together, when to come together, as well as how to act. What are the qualifications and standards for us as we come together as the Beta Israel, as children of the King of Kings and His Christ. So this is very important. So we're going to also seek to post some fellowship, some words concerning our fellowship and how we can come together and how we can link together. But right here in this particular sabbatical study, which is from Genesis 44 and 18 to Genesis 47 and 27. That's from the Orit Semuse, the Torah reading. Then we have the Haftarah, or the what we call the Nebiyat, the prophetical reading, Ezekiel 37 verse 15 to Ezekiel 37 and 28, as well as the Hadith Kidan, or the Burt Hadasha reading from the New Testament, which is Ephesians chapter 2 verses 1 to verse 10. So there's a note here that we'd like to touch on. Right here, there's a note here, and the note has a reference to Genesis, it says 35 and 18. Now the language is important too. The language, when we say language, is observing the English language first and foremost that's used here, and in discovering and uncovering what these words actually mean in the context, and then seeking to get behind these words. But binyam, or Benjamin also needs to be touched on. Benjamin, binyam. Now there's a note from Genesis 35 and 18, which is concerning, and it came to pass as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Ben-Oni, but his father called him Yamin, or Benjamin, called him Benjamin. This is when Rachel gave birth to Benjamin, or Ben-Oni, and the circumstances connected with his name. Now, it is important to observe that binyam, or Benjamin, now because it becomes prominent. Benjamin now in the story is becoming prominent in the story of Joseph and Egypt and the famine and the reunion of the family here. Now, Joseph, as we've been discussing, is peculiarly the type of Christos, or Christ, in his first event. In his first event, rejection, death, resurrection, and present exaltation among the Gentiles, or the non-Hebrews, but unrecognized of Israel. So this is interesting. This is why we had, in one of the most recent videos, we put on the screen this Obama type of Pharaoh art that was out there, right? This imagery. And we said over it, we said, is he Joseph, or is he anti-Joseph? I mean, is he Joseph, or is he anti-Joseph? Only time will tell. But in order for us to even understand these things properly, because some would dismiss it out of hand, but we said that it can't be dismissed totally out of hand, because, remember, Joseph was not recognized of Israel. he was not recognized of Israel, which is his own family, his own people. And there's also the Brana Selassie Bob Marley link with Joseph that we haven't gone very much deeper into as of yet. But as the greater Joseph, Benjamin, speaking of Benjamin now, the son of Sarah, but also the son of my right hand, he is to be revealed in the power of the Negus, or the kingdom. It is then and not till then that Israel is to be restored and converted. Typically anticipates the revelation prophetically described, at which time the binyam type of Christos or Mashiach will be fulfilled. And this is very important for us to go through, and this is a note from the Schofield study, the Schofield reference Bible. So we need to touch on Genesis 45 and 1.